Alright, in this video you will learn how to convert metric and customary units. We will start off with metric first, and then we'll move on to customary. So let me go ahead and show you a picture of what metric looks like. Here's a metric conversion chart. On the very left side is kilo. Kilo, when you see kilo, you'll see a K. Kilo represents 1,000 units. Kilo is the largest one. So when you have 1 kilo, that means you have 1,000, whatever it is. If it's a kilogram, then you have 1,000 grams. If you have 5 kilos, then you have 5,000. The next one is hecto. Hecto means 100. If you have 2 hecto, then you have 200. The next one is deca. Deca means 10. And then the basic unit, there's 3 things. The first thing is distance. That's called meters. A lot of students will confuse this M with that. That's milli. That's different. This meters. That's one of it. That's to measure distance. The next one is something called grams. That's to measure weight. Grams. The last one is called liters. That's volume or liquid. Liters. These are the 3 basic units, and all of these will be under the basic unit, so we can put the letter B. So whenever you see M, it's usually meters. When you see G, it's grams. When you see L, it's liters. Now after the basic units, we're going to go to deci. Deci means it's 0.1 or 1/10 of a unit. So it's 1/10. That'll be deci. Remember, this D is deci. That's 1/10. This is deca, which is 10. The next one is centi, which is 1/100ths or 0.0 or 0.01. The last one is milli, and don't confuse this M with that M. Okay. And then that is milli. That's 1/1000ths or 0.001. You might notice that when you go this way, it's 10 times larger every time, because it goes 10, 100, and then 1,000. So when you go this way, when you move towards kilo, every time you move this way, it's going to be 10 times larger. And then when you go this way, it's always going to be 1/10 times larger or 10 times smaller. It's 1/10 times 1/10. So when you multiply by a fraction, 1/10, it gets smaller. So this should remind you of our base 10 system. When you move to the left, it's always 10 times larger. And for example, you start in the ones, then it goes to the tens, then it goes to the hundreds, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. It's the same concept. It's so the metric conversion chart. Just know that every time you're going to get larger, it goes to kilo. Every time you go smaller, it goes to milli. So a good way to remember this is King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Once again, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. K for king stands for kilo, is 1,000. H for Henry is hecto, is 100. Died is deca, which is 10. By, which is the basic unit, you have the meters, grams and liters. And then drinking is going to be the deci, which is 1/10. Chocolate, which is the centi, which is 1/100ths. And the last one's M, chocolate milk, is the milli, which is 1/1000ths. Let me give you an example of how a problem would look like and how to solve it using our metric conversion chart. Let's say that Mr. Lou is going for a run, and I'm running 3.69 km. When you see km, you know it's kilometer. So, or the way he said is kilometer. 3.69 kilometer. How many meters is that? So we're going from kilometers, remember? So King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. So we're going from kilo, to the basic unit, which is the meters right there. So we're going to get smaller, because we're going down. It's 1/10 times 1/10 times 1/10. So it's going to get smaller. Now, because we're getting smaller, we have smaller, so we're going to get this number. The answer is going to be a higher number because it's getting smaller. So a good way to do this is, I like to do mine horizontal. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. You're starting off at the K, so I'll put a dot, and this dot represents a decimal in kilo. I'm trying to go to the basic unit, which is in the meters. 1/10, and then 1/100ths, 1/1000ths, 1/10,000ths. Actually, I'm sorry about that. I just need to stop there. So I'll move to the right 3 times. So I got 1,000 times smaller. So then you take the decimal where you're at. Here, let me just go and rewrite that. 3.69. And you also move that decimal 3 times to the right. 1, 2, 3. And because there's a gap here, you add a 0. And now you can erase the old decimal along with the old line. So 3.69 kilometers equals 3,690 meters. I moved the decimal 3 times to the right because they got 1,000 times smaller. And then I just erase the lines and the old decimal, and then I got my new number, which is 3,690. And you notice that the numbers stay the same. That's why the metric conversions is easy. The number stays the same. The only thing that changes is the decimal, where the decimal goes. Either it goes to the right or going to the left, depending if it gets smaller or larger. In this case, it went to the right, and this makes sense because it used to be 3.69 kilometers. Now it's 3,690 meters. The reason why it got higher is because you're going from kilometers really large to meters, so you're going to get smaller pieces, so you have more pieces. So then it's going to be 3,690. Let's go and do another one real quick. Said that Mr. Lee is drinking 16 liters of orange juice for a month. How many milliliters is that, really? So for this one, let's go and write it down. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. So in this case, I'm starting at the liters. So you might notice there's no L on the King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. The reason why it's liters is because it starts at the basic unit. Remember, the 3 basic units is grams, meters, and liters. They all start right there at the basic unit because they're just worth 1, so they're basic. And I'm trying to go to ml. This is the milliliter. So it's 1. I'm getting 10 times smaller. 2, 100 times smaller. 3, 1,000 times smaller. So I would move the decimal 3 times to the right. In this case, 16 is a whole number, and all whole numbers have a decimal. It's at the end because 16 is the same thing as 16.0. So that's why the decimal is always there. So I just need to move it 3 times to the right. 1, 2, 3. And of course, I just fill in my zeros. And the answer is going to be 16,000. So 16 liters is equal to 16,000 milliliters. Now, I can also prove that by going backwards. What I mean by that is if I have 16,000 milliliters, how many liters is that? It should go back to 16 if I did it correctly. So let's go ahead and check this out. So I'm starting at the milli this time, and I'm trying to go to liters. So I'm going towards the basic. So I'm getting 10 times larger, 100 times larger, 1,000 times larger. So I move the decimal 3 times to the left. Here's my hidden decimal. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And 16.000 is the same thing as 16. So that's how we know we did it correctly. And which makes sense because before we had milliliters, because we were getting larger, you can get less in terms of they're worth more. Now that's all there is to the metric. Metric conversions is easier than customary. All you need to do is move the decimal either to the left or to the right, and that's all there is to it. Now let's go and do customary. Alright, now for customary, you have to memorize a lot of things. For the metric, either you move the decimal left or right. In customary, you have to memorize all of this. So length, you need to know that in a ruler, right? So 12 inches equals 1 foot. That's a ruler. You just need to know that. You have to know that. There's 12 inches in 1 foot. So if there's 3 feet, then you know that each one equals 12 inches. So you could do 12 plus 12 plus 12, or you could do 12 times 3. And you also need to know that 3 rulers, or 3 feet, equals 1 yard. So if there's 5 yards, then it's 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, or 5 times 3. Or you may know that 18 yards equals 6. Oops, I meant the other way around. 18 feet is equal to 3 yards, because if there's 3 feet, not 3 yards, should be 6. Because if there's 3 feet in 1 yard and there's 18 feet, 18 divided by 3 will be 6 yards. So you just have to memorize all that. Now there's 5,280 feet in 1 mile. If there's 2 miles, of course, you would take 5,280 and multiply by 2, or just add it again. And then there's 1,760 yards in 1 mile. That's something that you need to know in order for you to convert. Now that's called length. That's distance. The next one is weight. There's 16 ounces in 1 pound. So when you have 2 pounds, it would be 32 ounces. And then 2,000 pounds equals 1 ton. So if a car weighs 3 tons, then it'll be 6,000 pounds, because it's 2,000 plus 2,000 plus 2,000. The next one is capacity, or volume. That's when you usually when you bake things, you have to use cups and quarts and gallons, or when you deal with liquid, that's what it is. So there's 128 fluid ounces in 1 gallon. There's 2 pints in 1 quart. There's 8 pints in 1 gallon, and there's 4 quarts in 1 gallon. And you have to memorize all that. For time, the last one, time. I think this one's the easiest one, because you know that there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, and then 60 minutes equals 1 hour. There's 24 hours in 1 day. There's 7 days in 1 week. There's 52 weeks in 1 year, and then there's 12 months in 1 year, and there's also 365 days in a year. So you have to memorize all that. Now let's go ahead and do some practice. We'll go ahead and do 1 practice per category. We'll do 1 practice for length, 1 practice for weight, 1 practice for volume, and 1 practice for time. So let's start with length. Let's say Mr. Liu has, let's say I threw a ball and it goes 8 yards. How many inches did I throw the ball? So we have to convert yards to inches. So we have to ask ourselves, this is confusing. How do we go from yards to inches? I know how to go from feet to inches, because I know there's 12 inches in 1 foot, but I really don't know how to go from yards to inches. So the first thing we need to do is we have to go from yards to feet. So we have to break this down into steps. So we know that there's 3 feet in 1 yard. But in this case, there's 8 yards. So we know that there's 3 times 8, because there's 3 feet in each yard, and there's 8 yards. So we could do 3 plus 3 plus 3 if we want, all the way up to 8 times, or we could do 3 times 8. And we know what 3 times 8 is, so we know that there's going to be 24 feet. And that's equivalent to 8 yards. So far we know that 8 yards equals 24 feet. Now we can go from feet to inches. We know that because there's 12 inches in 1 foot. So, and there's 24 feet. So we take 24 and we multiply that by 12, and that will give us the amount of inches. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. Let's add our 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. When we add up these partial products, we get 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 4 is 8. And 2 is by himself. So we know that 8 yards equals 288 inches. Now, there's an easier way, and if you know how to do this way, you are going to be golden. Let me show you. So here's 8 yards. I'm going to put YD. That's my abbreviation for yards. YD equals, and you're going to do something called proportions. So here's yards. We don't want yards. Now we have to get rid of yards. We have to put yards down here, and then we know that feet can go into yard. We know that there's 3 feet in 1 yard. So the reason why we put them diagonally against each other so then they can cancel themselves out. So yards can be canceled with yards. That leaves feet, but we don't want feet. So now we have to get rid of feet, so we want to put it diagonally as well. So there's feet there. And we know that to go feet, we go from feet to inches, and we need to know that there's 12 inches in 1 foot. In this case, now the feet crosses each other out. That leaves it with only inches, which is what we want. And you take a look at this. This is 8 times 3 over 1. But 3 over 1 is the same thing as 3. So it's pretty much 8 times 3 times 12 over 1, which is the same thing as 12. So if you take a look at it, isn't that what we did in the beginning? We did 8 times 3 to give us 24. Then we did it by 12. And now in this case, we could do 8 times 3 times 12, and that will give us the 288. So as long as you know how to do this, you're going to be solid. Now you can also go backwards. For example, let's say that we started with the inches first, and we want to go to yards. So let's say we want to go backwards. So in this case, what Mr. Liu would do is, okay, I don't want inches. So then if I don't want inches, I want to eliminate it by putting it below. I know that there's 12 inches in 1 foot. And now the inches can cross itself out. That leaves me with feet. But I don't want feet, I want yards. So now I have to eliminate the feet. And then I put yards on top. I know there's 3 feet in 1 yard. Now I can cross out the feet, and that leaves me with a yard, which is what I want. So for me to do this, it's pretty much 288 times 1/12 times 1/3. We know that inverse operation, when you multiply something by 1/12, it's the same thing as dividing by 12. When you multiply something by 1/3, it's the same thing as dividing by 3, because it's inverse operation. So for me to do this, I would do 288 divided by 12, and then divided by 3, and then that will give me back my 8 yards. So as long as you know how to do that, with proportions, you're going to be solid for the length. By the way, the secret code to this video is leadership. So please write that on the homework when I ask you to write the secret code, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to explain it, just write the secret code is leadership. And also write a joke for Mr. Liu so I can laugh. So once again, on your homework, write leadership as the secret code, and then write me a silly joke that you know so I can laugh. Alright, the next thing we're doing is weight. So we know that there's 16 ounces in 1 pound. And 2,000 pounds equals 1 ton. So let's go and practice some math. Let's say that a car weighs 7 tons. How many pounds does that weigh? So pretty much you know that there's 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. In this case, there's 7 tons. So you would just do 2,000 times 7. You can do 0, 0, 0, 14. So we know that the answer is going to be 14,000 pounds. Now, if you want to go backwards, what if Mr. Liu gives you the pounds? Let's say that I gave you 18,000 pounds. How many ton is that? In this case, you know there's still 2,000 pounds in a ton. So what you would do is you would take 18,000, and of course you would just divide it by 2,000. And you know there's 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, 14,000, 16,000, and then 19,000. Or, no, 18,000, so it'll be 9 times. Because you know that 2 times 9 would be 18. So pretty much I can eliminate 1 0, 2 zeros, 3 zeros, and that's pretty much 18 divided by 2. So we know there's going to be 9 tons. So that's it for weight. For capacity or volume, you just need to know your story. There's a great kingdom of gallon. This is 1 gallon. In this kingdom, there's 4 majestic queens. Or quarts. So you know there's 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Each queen had a prince and a princess. So there's 2 pints in a quart. And if you count them all up, there's 8 pints in a gallon, because in the whole entire gallon there's 8 pints. Lastly, each prince and princess had 2 children. So there you go. So there's 2 cups in a pint. There's also 4 cups in a quart. And there should be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 cups in a gallon. As long as you know this story, you can draw this out. You can use this to help you. For example, what happens? How many pints is there in 2 gallons? 2 gallons equals how many pints? Well, in 1 gallon, there's 8 pints. So then if it's 2 gallons, that'll be 16 pints, because you do 8 times 2. Alright, the last one is time. So let's say that there's 8 hours. How many seconds were there in 8 hours? So this is pretty much the same thing with a distance. So let's go and let's see if you remember how to do this. Here's 8 hours. I'm going to put HR. I don't want hours. I want minutes. So I know there's 60 minute is in 1 hour. See? So I can cross it out. Then I don't want minutes, because what I'm trying to find out is seconds. So I'm going to write my minutes down here and my seconds up there, so I can cross out my minutes. And I know there's 60 seconds in 1 minute. So my problem really becomes 8 times 60 over 1, which is the same thing as 60 times another 60. So I could do that way. And for me to figure that out, I could do my math. It was 8 times 60 times 60. I could do this any way I want. I could do 60 times 60 first and multiply by 8. In this case, I'm going to do 60 times 60. I know that 6 times 6 is 36, and there's 2 zeros, so it's 3,600. Then I take that 3,600 and multiply it by 8. 8 times 0 is 0, 8 times 0 is 0, 8 times 6 is 48, carry my 4. 8 times 3 is 24, add 4 is 28. So my answer is going to be, there's 28,800 seconds in 8 hours. And as long as you know how to do that, you're going to be A-OK. And this video is long enough. I'm ending it. Enjoy your day.